Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's nice to see you again on the Trump Tyranny Tracker with Olga Lautman, the creator and author of the Trump Tyranny Tracker. How are you, Olga?
I'm good. I'm actually entertained. I just watched a video of Russia shooting down one of its fighter jets
By accident,
by accident,
presumably. Yeah.
but
How did that happen?
I mean, this is not the first time. It just shows how incompetent they are.
This was in
So
Ukraine or is it in Russian territory?
it's occupied
Okay,
territory.
good.
And so I watched, two planes, two Russian fighter jets, one by accident, shot down the other, literally right before I logged in. I
Oh,
was like,
well.
oh, good, more,
Well, they make more
please.
mistakes. We should touch on the breaking news before we get into the Trump Tyranny Tracker today. But there is this Israeli strike that took out a top Iranian military commander. It's also taken out supposedly some nuclear facilities. What's your take on this? You know, Trump has flip-flopped already on his position, as he always does. The Iranians are saying they're not going to be taking part in talks this weekend. But, maybe they will. Maybe they will convince otherwise. That's what the Trump administration is saying. Unlikely. But, this is Bibi doing Bibi, basically.
Yeah, it's fascinating because literally the strikes took out pretty much the whole top leadership of Iran, and senior officials to the regime, the political leadership, and the military leadership. Um, it is fascinating how quick Trump distanced himself from this yesterday via the State Department that, we had nothing to do with this and whatnot. I was monitoring Russian news until like 4 a.m. And, for the most part, at the beginning, they were covering for Trump, and saying, no, the U.S. has nothing to do with this. And then the coverage shifted somewhere around 2 a.m. And they started saying that the U.S. was involved in this and whatnot. So it's interesting. And as we're speaking, Israel is carrying out another wave of attacks against Iran. Um, and as soon as Trump saw the operation was successful, he immediately jumped on, like, this is me, all me. I did this and whatnot. The last thing I'll say about it is that, Iran sent 100 drones. And I mean, this is yet again the same situation that happened a few years ago, that Iran sent 100 drones to Israel and 5 countries intervened to knock them down. Ukraine has 450 drones plus dozens of ballistic missiles, and absolutely no one intervenes to shoot them down, not even when it's flying through, neighboring countries' airspace. So
It seems that within the dictators, within the strongman alliance, whatever they do is okay. If Bibi or Putin or Trump does something, that seems to be okay. If it happens to anybody else, then it's not okay. So, it's...
the last thing I'll
Yeah.
add, the last is I was watching at the same time as of what Russia was doing, mega movement, and MAGA is split. I mean, it is between the America First crowd, and if you look at all the politicians, all the Republican politicians, literally same message: pray for Israel. Some putting some quotes and whatnot. If you go into their comments, I mean, you have literally like half of MAGA like attacking them, and saying, oh, what happened to America First? What happened to no wars, US not being involved and whatnot. So it's fascinating to see yet another fracture happening on yesterday within the
They're only
MAGA
just figuring
alliance.
out that everything he said was a lie. I mean, duh. Moving on to the Trump Tyranny Tracker, the biggest story I think we've seen in a long time when it comes to authoritarian creep is the story around California Senator Alex Padilla, who was violently restrained and handcuffed by Secret Service and FBI agents after attempting to question the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem at a press conference in Los Angeles. Video shows Padilla identifying himself and shouting "hands off" as he was pinned to the ground. The Department of Homeland Security then lied about the incident, claiming Padilla failed to identify himself and posed a threat. That was contradicted, of course, by the video evidence that we all saw. But this is really normalizing violence against your political opponents. These are the elected officials of America, and they're a target for violence as well by this administration.
Yeah, so we were on air when this was
Mm.
happening and we didn't know what was happening. A few people put in the chat, that this incident was breaking. And I'll tackle it from two aspects. One, the fact that now we have a US senator who literally was thrown to the ground. Everyone knows who he is. He was walked in to the by the FBI and National Guard because he was there for a meeting
Mm.
in a federal building. So the fact that they're lying and saying we didn't know and this random man just came shouting at us is a lie, because he was a few doors down for his meeting, which was delayed, found out about this press conference, and his escorts walked him over to this room. So, you have now a U.S. senator who was, tackled and thrown to the ground and handcuffed. You have a U.S. congresswoman who has been indicted. You have a U.S. mayor who was arrested. You have a few judges who were arrested. I mean, it just shows you that the pattern is escalating. The other tactic I'll address is the disinformation and propaganda. Um, every single Republican, I remember a time when Congress defended their own, like regardless, Republican or Democrat, and short of a few, you know, Republicans who said this is outrageous, everyone came with the same talking points, basically that he lunged at this woman, and they're using this propaganda despite the fact, I mean, I've never seen such gaslighting when there is a video from every single angle, the front, the sides, the outside. And the fact that they, decided to stick on to this messaging, and then Kristi Noem hops on Fox News. You're a freaking, Department of Homeland Security Secretary. Like, your first thing after this incident shouldn't be, let me hop on Fox News to discuss and put out more propaganda and disinformation.
And justified what happened. I mean, she justified the
Absolutely.
violence against an elected official. This is so wrong. I mean, people get arrested. That's, people heckle, all these things happen. But to have violence, state-sanctioned violence against the elected representatives of the people of America is an attack on democracy. It's plain and simple as that. And that cannot be countenanced. I mean, this is one of those tipping points we always talk about. This is the one I look for the most because it's such a egregious one. These people were elected by the very people they're representing, and then they're being tackled to the ground by these people. It's just
I mean, it's absolutely,
terrible.
it's in shock.
Yeah.
It's disgraceful what happened. And this is the scene that I would expect out of Russia. I've
Mhm.
seen many of these scenes,
Yeah.
and worse, but not in the United States. I mean, they could have easily, he identified himself. We heard him identify himself. And like I said, this is a federal building. You have to walk through screening to get into a federal
They
building.
knew who he was, and they knew he was there.
Absolutely,
Of
they knew.
course, she knows who he is. It's not a surprise
She
to
knows,
anybody.
and if she's in the state and doesn't know one of the two
Exactly.
senators there, then
Yes,
get
got a
the hell
problem.
out of the state.
Yeah. No, another thing you got to worry about is the slippery slope on all of this. Like, where does it go? And we know what happens in Russia. Where it goes is people get assassinated along the banks of a river. We can't let this stand. This kind of stuff should not be allowed to happen at all
No.
in a democracy. Moving to our second story, the Justice Department has instructed all 93 U.S. attorney offices and its criminal division to be on standby this weekend to quickly file federal charges against protesters. The directive outlines over a dozen potential charges, including statutes used against January 6 insurrectionists, and demands press releases with every arrest. Unbelievable. Attorney General Pam Bondi has declared zero tolerance for any protest-related offenses. Another crackdown on dissent, another crackdown on free speech, another crackdown on protests.
Yeah, and I mean, they already have a press release ready, which basically is just copying and pasting the photo of the person and a few details. I mean, this is disgusting. America is built on, the freedom of speech, the freedom of assembly. It is our right to go out and protest things that we do not agree with. I mean, this is just a fundamental right and the founding, the rights that America was founded on. And the fact that they, are attempting to turn this. First of all, there are two things. One, on itself, this is disgusting. I mean, it's a very authoritarian tactic, but the fact that they seem to be prepared for violence and
Yeah.
that they may actually use, their operatives to stage a scene and then, to blast photos out. I mean, the whole thing really, I mean, we've never had this. We have protests, we do have police organized and, get ready for protests, local authorities, not the Department of
Yeah.
Justice. And this is the Department of Justice completely overreaching,
Mhm.
where when one person hasn't even stepped out on the street tomorrow yet. I mean,
Absolutely. And they're using the same statutes that were used against them in the January 6th, coup. But during the moments, there was actually crimes being committed. I mean, they were demolishing or at least attacking the very Congress that they were in. I mean, this is, they were defiling it. They were,
they
threatening
had
the
a
birders.
noose
And yeah, they had a
to
noose.
hunt down the
Yeah.
vice president of the United States. And frankly, I'm not a fan of Pence, but
Mm.
I mean, the fact that these people wanted to assassinate and hang him in front of the Congress building, Capitol Hill, is, I mean, it speaks for itself.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how they twist the statutes in order to attack the protesters in the next few days. Our third story focuses on Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's refusal to commit to following federal court orders. When he was pressed by lawmakers about whether he would comply if a court rules that Trump's deployment of troops in Los Angeles illegal, Hegseth dodged questions and dismissed district court authority over national security decisions, which is crazy. What's your take on this? This is just ignoring everything, every rule of law, any court. It's ridiculous.
So, it's one thing when they say this, on Fox News or on Newsmax or one of these propaganda channels or podcast. It's another thing when they put it officially into record,
Mm.
that they don't know if they will, adhere to a court order. And this is extremely dangerous because this shows you yet again how emboldened they are. Because, I mean, they are sworn, I mean, before you testify or give any kind of, at a hearing, you you have to, swear an oath to tell the truth. Everything gets entered into official records. And the fact that they have this put into official records just shows you how unhinged and untouchable they feel.
Also,
There's
why
a
doesn't he know the
difference.
law? Why doesn't the defense secretary
He
know
knows
he
he knows the
says he
law. He
doesn't.
said
Yeah,
no, he knows the law
yeah,
very well. He's just, his law is what Trump says.
yeah. Which is
And this
not the
is
law,
who
ultimately, which is illegal. So it's this is the thing about them is they keep saying if Trump says it, it's okay, but that's not the way America works. There are laws we
yeah.
have to follow.
And
Finally,
and
I'm sorry.
he's still under investigation, that Tulsi Gabbard is trying to squash the investigation for using Signal. And yesterday, the minute this happened and they started moving US resources out because US is on high alert because Iran said US is, going to be the first target. I mean, I'm like, my God, somebody better be checking his Signal chats
I
because
bet you. I bet you he's
they're
on
probably
signal. I bet you he is. Finally, Trump's America 250 military parade, supposedly marking the U.S.'s Army 250th anniversary and Trump's birthday, is being organized by veterans of the January the 6th insurrection. According to MAGA insiders, there are amongst the organizers, including crypto backers, or the other. What a coalition! You got MAGA insiders, crypto backers, and January 6th insurrectionists organizing a parade. And the sponsors include Palantir, now under contract to help Trump surveil America, Coinbase, which is a crypto company, the UFC, and Tron, also I think a crypto company. What was once a nonpartisan celebration has become a rebranding as Trump's propaganda spectacle featuring tanks and glorification of military power. It's the most horrific, gaudy thing you've ever seen. But to get access, you have to pay for it. You can't just go. To get VIP access, you have to pay for it by buying his crypto. It's corruption on top of a military parade. There you go.
But I'm laughing because I don't even think Putin thought of this. He has his military
Right.
spectacles all the time. But I don't think that he decides to sell tickets via
Yeah.
crypto.
It is something. It is something.
So
Maybe Putin's taking notes for the next one,
I
I'll sell
think
some
so.
crypto for access.
and Kim Jong-un. He's like, why didn't I think about making money off my parade? I
I wonder
mean,
if
the whole thing is it's so ridiculous and so infuriating that it's hilarious. I mean, that's the only way you could think of it. And the fact, I mean, we've already talked about this parade. This is what you see in North Korea and
yeah,
Russia. The fact that I am seeing scenes today of military members marching through the streets of DC and military vehicles breaking the streets of DC, because this is going to cost just 16
oh
million
yeah,
at a minimum to repair the
unbelievable.
streets of DC, plus 45 million for this freaking spectacle to honor Trump, who dodged the military. The guy hates the military. He dodged the military. He has disparaged the military. We talked about it yesterday, the stage spectacle at Fort Bragg, that he didn't want fat military members
Unbelievable.
standing behind him. I mean, and I could just imagine he probably, um, because this has been in the planning for months, he probably sat there and said, okay, you have to pick the right look to
Oh,
be in
I'm
my
sure.
parade.
I'm
I
sure it's
mean,
produced for optics. It's only optics. You know, look, at the same time, he's cutting veterans' benefits. He's cutting, veterans' mortgages that they need to pay for their homes.
the
All that.
suicide
Yeah,
hotline.
yeah. And he's getting a parade for himself. We spoke to a Marine, a former Marine, or sorry, I should say Marine veteran on the Dean and my show yesterday. And she says, truthfully, soldiers hate going to these parades. She's like, it's awful. It's a lot of practice. No one gets anything out of it if you're a soldier. It's not like you're learning how to parade. So the Trump is going to get a lot out of it. He'll get the glory or whatever he wants to get out of it. But for the average rank and file, they're not happy to be there. They're just doing it because they have to do it for most people. And on top of that, now, they're being sold out to a bunch of crypto guys. And maybe the Chinese Communist Party guy that was at the last crypto fundraiser, maybe he'll come too. Maybe. I mean, who knows?
I'm pretty sure he will come because he was one of the VIP people. And
Right.
apparently, so we'll have the communists taking notes, taking it back to Xi. Like, hey, next time you have this military spectacle to honor yourself, make sure to sell tickets to it, via crypto. I mean, and it is
Actually sounds
disgraceful.
ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud, but the fact that it's true is just, just tells
It's
you everything you need to
disgraceful.
know.
It's disgraceful. And I mean, look, we need to honor America's, army. This is a fundamental thing, but I mean, we've marked, our military, like celebrated our military members before, without injecting this insanity. The most a U.S. president would come, make a speech for a few minutes, honoring them, and that's it, and leave. Like,
Yeah.
this is not about them. Trump's team turned the army about him. So the whole celebration is about Trump being a commander. And like I said, I mean, we've talked about this so many times. This is really, really Russian territory, North Korean territory, Chinese territory.
America's not about this. America's not about
No.
military parades. We're about government for the people, by the people. And here we are having this, ostentatious, gaudy, masculine military show of force that, everyone knows America's strong. You don't need to show them with
We
tanks going down the street. We get it.
we are the most lethal force on the planet, and we have never needed to exhibit a parade of this. I
Exactly.
mean, really, is next year's parade going to be what? Nuclear missiles rolling down like Kim Jong-un?
I mean, it'll be his 80th birthday, so we'll have an extra special one planned, I bet. Well, that's the Trump tyranny tracker for today. Olga Lautman will be back with me on Monday, but we'll also do our second session in the Authoritarianism 101 seminar series that we're doing. And next Tuesday, do you know the topics off the top of your head that we're doing next Tuesday? I know I might be putting you on the spot.
No, creating the enemies and how
Oh, yeah, of course.
authoritarians, which we were supposed to do last week, but the
Yeah.
controlling the narrative went too long. But creating enemies, how every single dictator, in order to rise to power, always has to find a set of enemies in order to be able not only to, gain the power, but then to expand the power. We saw it with Russia. We're seeing it, with
We've seen with
Trump.
the undocumented immigrants, so they're turning them into the enemy. That's the LGBT community. We're seeing it everywhere. So this is going to be an important and relevant theme to what we're doing and seeing in the news every single day.
And the second tactic is politicizing law enforcement and how you basically create a police state under the guise of, dealing with these enemies.
Maybe by arresting a senator at a press conference. Maybe that's how you do it. That'll be on Tuesday. There's still spaces available. Everyone should please register on either the Trump Tyranny Tracker or Unmasking Russia or on Narativ.org. I'll be back at 3 p.m. with 5 Stack with Dean Blundell. I've got a lot of stories covering today, so we'll see you then. Plus, if you want to check out Narativ.org, I'm about to publish a story about how we have hit the authoritarian tipping point, that we're officially, I think, on the other side of that tipping point. And I'll explain why in that story on Narativ.org. That is the Trump Tyranny Tracker for today. Thank you very much for being here, and we'll see you again on Monday. Bye,
Make sure you go protest tomorrow.
Well, I can't, but other people can.
Yeah, no, everyone.
Yeah. I try to keep myself journalistically objective. I don't do protests anymore. I got to, I'll explain that on another day. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you and a great weekend. Bye-bye. Be safe out there.
Bye.